Welcome, guys. We've got a very special guest. This is, I don't know if it's going to be the first released video, but it's the first time we're ever recording. And with Alex Ramirez is a buddy of mine. And you guys know the lean space, you know that he's a big deal. So we're super excited to have him here. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Hugh. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. I know we talk about a lot about the lean stuff, but we were actually going to talk today about money. Isn't that exciting? Yeah, but before we get into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? What are you known for? You're famous in the lean community. Why? And then we can get into the next steps.
Oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm famous, but I'll tell you what my small trajectory. I've been working for oil and gas for 23 years. So started in the same company. I'm still in the same company, and worked my way through from engineering to managing people, production, operations. And I've always been in the techniques. And then I found out what 2-second lean is, which is a little different than a corporate lean, let's say with tools. And I guess I have been very passionate about that because I've seen the response of what people can achieve by implementing 2-second lean. And here I am.
That's awesome.
Talking to you because we met through the lean community, right?
Yeah. And for one thing that Alex didn't mention is 2-second lean is almost impossible to implement if you're a middle manager. But Alex Ramirez is one of the only people in the world that I'm aware of that has successfully done it. And he also has some pitfalls on what can happen if things don't go right upon leaving. And so that's really a cool thing. We'll get into that later as well. And
I'm the sandwich where I have to convince everyone under my, let's say, my cover to be able to do lean, but also I need to make sure that management understands what I'm trying to do. And that's not always easy, both sides of it.
Right, because things can be perceived as a complete waste of time. But really, you have tons of gains to be had, and you get the results. But when you have people in the office or people that are away from the why, they don't understand the why, it becomes very difficult. So we're definitely going to get into Alex's story, probably on a different podcast dedicated solely to that, because he's got it down at we're not going to name the name of the company, but 16,000 plus employees, and they're all over the world. It's corporate America. I came from corporate America. It's one of those companies, right?
Yeah. I was just having some tests with one of my buddies in Saudi Arabia. He is right now showing me how we spread the 2-second lean just with that WhatsApp, just through videos, just through showing what you can do. So yeah, it's really cool.
Nice. Well, I'm excited. Today, though, we're going to talk about money. For those of you that don't know my background, I am a self-made millionaire. I was in the manufacturing business. I took the lessons I learned, the ones that Alex and I are dancing around right now, and I applied them to personal finance and real estate. And I retired as a millionaire in 15 months. And now I have like 300 houses or units that are paying me every month. I'm retired. I go where I want, when I want, see who I want. I can work whenever, but I don't even have to work. I'm doing it because I love it. So Alex and I were talking a little bit about that. And I was like, let's just hop on because I think that this conversation should be recorded. So
see what I can learn today.
Oh, or what I can learn from you. So, okay. So what were you, so you're in your personal life and what are you doing here? All right. So you make money from your W-2. And
Yep.
The reason I wanted to talk to you about this is because there's so many business owners that are going above and beyond, out of their way. They're working their butt off, right? And they may have money set aside. Or unfortunately, there's a lot of other business owners that don't have any money set aside. And this is all they're doing with their whole life. And maybe they're, not you, but maybe they're approaching the end of the time they want to be working. And they're like, oh, if I stop working, I'm going to have nothing. And that's a little bit about what today is about, because I have stopped working, or could if I choose to. Now I do what I want. And what I want is to help people get to where I'm at. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But why don't you catch us up to speed with, where you're at and what you're thinking?
Well, typically in a corporation, you get benefits for a 401k to retire. So that's an investment fund, as you know. So that's good and fine. And there's some benefits of a company which are great that they match a certain percent. So you got to take advantage of that. But I think that as we work and focus to have a career and do some income, and you start being more lean, where your costs are reduced to the minimum, right? What do you do with the rest of the money? You need to find a ways to diversify, and that's where we got talking. How can we diversify that extra cash to make it work for you? How can we make that a live money? I call it, right? Make it work for a good purpose.
Right. Right. No, I think that's a great question. So I mean, part of it, uh, you can invest it into an IRA. You can, the caps out at whatever $7,000 is this year. You can put it into a brokerage account and get your 12% return, and then you can do other things like buy assets. Alex, do you know what an asset is versus a liability? In your words?
Well, for me, an asset is something that it has value and that can give you something in return. It's not draining you with cost, right? So, for example, what I've done is uh, through the years, I bought a couple homes where you can either finance it and have some renters pay the bill, let's say, and be able to do some patrimony by acquiring homes or land or things of that nature. But I know you're a realtor, a very successful one, and that's where you're gonna teach me if I'm doing it right or not.
Well, I have a quick update. I'm not a realtor. I invest in real estate.
Well, that's
And you don't have to be a realtor to invest in real estate. And there's some strategy. There's some reasons that are unimportant here of why I intentionally do not have my license. So the short answer, I'm taking this directly from Robert Kiyosaki, the Purple Bible, if you've ever heard it referred to as that. But basically, it's Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he has two definitions. One is an asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. And then there's things that are stores of value, right? And so like gold, you can buy it, you lose the money, but it doesn't give you money every month. It's not an asset, it's a store of value, right? Watches, debatable, maybe a store of value. Your personal home that you live in, does it make you money every month?
no.
And so that would be considered a liability. But everyone was always talking about, oh, your car's an asset, your home's an asset. It is an asset for the banks because you're putting money in the bank's money every month, so they're calling it assets, and they train us to think this way. So we're gonna kind of not necessarily pick Alex apart or anything, but start from a very base level and kind of grow it up. So you're already used to flips. Over the last many years, you said you got 6 homes, and now you're down to 3 homes, 3 flip homes. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's really, I've had homes where it's not really flip, it's maybe a face up
Okay.
where, after some time of renting them, they get deteriorated. So you give it a little lift up and then you sell the asset with a bigger value because of the time. So obviously the value of the home is increased. But also you can't sell it as is because then the value is a lot less, right? But yeah, we're trying to get into now. What do we do with that? Maybe doing some flips, which is require a little more work, and diversifying it. Obviously, trying not to take focus out of the work, but farming out some of that work to some contractors that they could work for your money and make that, if not duplicate, triplicate, or whatever, so we can have a good retirement, just like you're retiring. At what age are you right now?
Right now I'm 33, but I retired at age 29, something like that.
Wow. So you see, so that's the kind of life that everybody would like to have, right?
Well, and definition of retirement doesn't mean you stop and you go fishing all day. It means that I can do whatever I want, when I want, with who I want. When I was 29 and retired, I couldn't really travel, because I had a very tight budget. Now that I'm 32, I've grown my portfolio. I can go visit. I mean, we were just talking. I'm going to be visiting Alex here, and we're going to be writing a book or two, and it's going to be a blast. Okay, so one thing you said, why are you selling your house? This is a question I have. You said you flipped a house. Why are you selling it?
Today, for just a simple reason, is would like to have cash to be able to invest in other things and continue that process of flipping or rebuilding homes and having a better value for what you can invest on, right?
So I think what you said is you're selling your house because you want money. What if I told you
Correct.
you can have your house and have your money,
Yeah, you can talk to the bank and get a finance. That's another way,
right?
of course.
And so one of the things I have is my strategy. For those of you who don't know, you're probably going to hear a lot about it. Especially if I'm educating an entrepreneur, it's called the BRRRR strategy: buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. 4 words. There's links to it wherever you're watching this down below. But basically, you did the hard work. But what we're trained, what we're taught by the entire industry, by banks, by appraisers, by inspectors, by realtors, is that you have to sell a house to make money. And the reason they're taught that is because they make money twice. It is not in their best interest for you to understand how real estate works. It is in their best interest that you don't know anything and you blindly trust them. So I'm not saying everyone's bad and out to get you. I'm saying the real estate industry is set up on your lack of knowledge. And that's how they make money, right? Financial advisors, which is a completely different topic, also very, very similar, right? You're working so hard at your company or growing your business that you say, these other people, I must trust them. I'll let them handle my stuff. With a little bit of education, you can handle it yourself and do a great job. Okay. So if you sell the property, do you own it anymore?
No, you don't. If you sell it, you don't own it anymore, for sure.
But that's not now. Let's say, just for easy math, you bought the property 5 years ago, 10 years ago for $100,000. And now it's 10 years later, you sell it for $200,000. Do you owe taxes on it?
Yes.
Okay. So you bore the risk. You're the one who dealt with the tenants. You're the one who dealt with the toilets and the roof and I don't know, whatever. And then now you sell and then they're going to tax you on top of it. Right. And so what if, so I don't get taxed and I don't sell my properties. My goal at this time is to buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. I'm going to BRRRR houses. I'm going to BRRRR, and then I'm going to die holding my houses. And when I die, under current law, who knows by the time those houses or properties will step up in value to my children to be passed on. If on my deathbed, I sign the properties over to them right now, they just lose out on all the value. Basically, I now owe taxes on let's say the same $100,000 house is worth, I don't know, $1 million when I'm 80 or $750,000. Well, I now owe the taxes on the difference or rather who I transferred them to did. But if I die and my kids get them, then they get what's called a step up tax basis. And they basically get the value. They inherit the property at $750,000. That's what that means. And if the US or any country were to get rid of this, then every farm, every landowner, every congressman and everything that they own will implode instantaneously within a year. So the likelihood of that going away, I'm not going to say is impossible, but it's probably not going to happen. So it's very similar. So I mean, what questions do you have around that real quick?
So you were talking about the best way instead of, for example, investing in homes was on apartment complexes. Tell me why. What is your thinking?
That's a great question. Okay, so this all started, and this was an offline conversation, but I just asked Alex a very direct question. How much money do you have to work with? And Alex said a number, and I'm not going to say the exact number, but let's just say it's $500,000, right? And the question is, the real root that I'm asking is, why is he thinking so small? Why not go after an apartment complex? Why are you going after a single family home? If Alex only had $10,000 or $20,000, he is exactly where he should be, right? Flipping single family homes in Houston, Texas. Maybe if he has 50 or 100,000, maybe $200,000, he could be flipping, I'm not going to say flipping because I don't like the term, but BRRRRing some bigger properties. But if he's at the success level, right, he's been working for 23 years, upper middle management, lower executive management for a big company. Why is he going to go after such a small property. And so the question I have, one, is when you actually go flip the properties, Alex, do you swing the hammer? Are you doing the renovations, or do you hire contractors?
No. I need contractors. I have my own job and I need to be focused on my job.
So the main thing is you're already there, right? You're already not doing the work. And let's just say, off the top of your head, you're probably used to managing people, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, because that's what you do for your full-time professional job. So when I got into real estate, there was a book. It's right here. It's called BRRRR, BRRRR, Buy, Rehab, Rent, Refinance, Repeat. And it gave me the strategy, and it said there's only 4 people you need to manage. And if you can manage those 4 people, you can grow infinitely with a full-time job. And that's what I did while I was working my full-time job until I got enough of a size to quit. Now, I started with $200,000. Actually, it was $220,000, but I owed the government $40,000 in taxes that I didn't pay because it wasn't tax time yet. And I said, I'm going to use all of this as a down payment. I'll figure it out before tax time. And I was able to figure it out. I recommend you don't do that. But I basically, my first thing I bought was 26 houses. That was my first house I ever bought. I bought 26 really, really rough houses. Knowing what I know now, especially since Alex has already done 6 flips before, the question is, what I do different? And I would go after small multifamily. Instead of 26 houses, right? Because you're not really taking that, right? Let's say you had $500,000, right? What do people think you need to buy a house? 20% down, right?
Yeah, I think that's the minimum for insurance purpose.
So that's on average 20 divided by 0.2. That means you can control with $500,000 a $2.5 million property. That means if you take your $500,000 and you use it as a down payment, you can buy a $2.5 million apartment complex.
If you have good credit.
Yeah, maybe. You said, yeah. So the answer is, if you're buying an asset, you as Alex become a lot less important. But you think that way. You're trained to think like this. They're looking more at the asset than they are at you. Now, let's say you had 500 grand. I would not do that. I would half the amount. I would go find a $1.25 million apartment complex, which in Houston's probably like an 8-plex or a 10-plex. And then I take half the amount, reserve $250,000, and I'm going to take that $250,000 for renovations to pay my contractor, and I'm going to buy the asset. I'm going to buy, maybe it's in Cambodia town, right? Maybe it's if for those of you used to, Houston, right? You're not going to be buying in the woodlands, right? You're gonna find somewhere that's kind of older, run down, that's in a path of progress, right? There's some older parts of town where you see revitalization is coming. Texas is exploding, right? So many people are abandoning California to move to Texas, right? Houston, almost the largest city. No, it is the largest city in the United States, isn't it?
The
Fourth largest city in the US. Okay, it's going to get even bigger because you have people moving.
Yeah.
So the likelihood it's not going to go down is, now, if I were talking to you and you were like, I don't know, in the middle of Oklahoma, not by one of the major cities, it'd probably be a different story. But you can buy an 8-unit apartment complex, 10-unit, $1 million. You're not really $1 million. You're taking 250 grand and you're putting it as a down payment. But here's the thing. A 10-plex in Houston should probably be worth $2 million if it were fixed up, but you're buying it for $1.25 million. So
so the bank sees the value of the asset, which can easily give you credit for that.
Exactly. And then with that, you flip it, right? You already have experience. When you go talk to the bank, you say, hey, listen, right now we have 50% vacancy and it's really run down. I'm going to go ahead and buy this. I'm going to have a 1-year time to flip it. It should be renting for $1,000 a month per apartment. That's $10,000 a month altogether. Right now, 5 are vacant and the other 5 are renting for $400 a month. You're buying it with problems, and then you're selling it without problems. Or you're not selling it, you're refinancing it to the bank. What are some other benefits? What do you think are some other benefits to that?
Maybe tax
benefits. Okay. So you're not selling it. So you can't be taxed because you're taking a loan.
You're investing. So there's expenses. You can
You can deduct the expenses, right?
Well, you have income.
You have income. They're really going to pay you $10,000 a month at the end. Now, when you get a loan, maybe the loan's $7,000 a month. So you're only making $3,000 a month. But if you have a loan against it, you get all of your money back. Now, what is that? What is that apartment complex going to be worth in 10 years?
Yeah, probably 2.5.
Now, let me ask you a painful question. The house that you sold, think about a house that you sold. What is it worth now versus when you bought it?
It's probably twice as much.
Right. But you sold it. Maybe between the time you bought it and the time you sold it, it's worth twice as much. 10 years from now, what if you just still had that house?
Yeah, because I won't have to. Now I have to pay the taxes on what I sold, the difference that they'll.
But you still own and control the house. And that's the big thing. Is rent going to be higher or lower for the tenants in that house in the future? And this works for you in Houston in the United States, but I'm working with friends in the UK right now, and they have different laws. They have different banking structures. They have variable rate instead of fixed rate. But the premise is still the same. You're a high income producer. A lot of business owners are high income earners that maybe aren't very good with money because they're all focused on their job. My goal is take the money. Hey, when you're making money in your left pocket, let's put that money in your right pocket for you and your family to have forever.
Okay. So yeah, so I still would challenge you. Why apartments and not homes?
Okay.
Because you also rent homes instead of apartments.
You can.
What is the apartments? Because it's the same principle, right? You can have smaller homes.
That's a fantastic question. So one, this is going to be highly dependent on where you are in the world. You being in Houston will be a little bit easier. If you lived in California or New York or Boston, completely different story. Where in the UK it might be different. The main reason is where you're at is relatively affordable to do homes, but you're not going to have very much cash flow from those homes. And then the debt that you can get against an apartment complex is going to come easier than the debt against a single family home. Another big reason is, let's say it's that 10-unit apartment complex. You have 2 stories of 5 units on the ground floor. You have 1 roof. You don't have 10 roofs. You have 2 water heaters or 3 water heaters or 4. You don't have, 10 water heaters. You've got 1 insurance policy. If you have vacancy, all right, let's say you have a loan for $7,000 against the property, right? And now you're making your $10,000 a month. You can have up to 3 units before you go negative. But if you have a mortgage on a single family house, and then now, okay, yeah, we get it. Someone moved out. Maybe it takes a month to get it ready. Now you got to put it on the market. Now it takes another month to get someone in. You rented it out. Who paid for those 2 months?
Yeah, it's easier. You're diversifying the asset,
The risk.
The risk instead of either one home rented or not rented. Here you have 5 or 10 apartments that you could have a 50%, 80% full, and like you said, the number of factors is reduced completely, like the water heater, the electricity, the AC, I don't know, so many things, right?
Yeah. And now none of those things are why I do it. I do it because of time. Because it takes about a month to, let's say 2 months to 3 months to go in and buy a property in rough shape, fix it up, make it nice, and sell it. So let's just say it's 3 months. That's a very normal, achievable time. If it's your first time you've ever doing it, maybe it's 6 months, right? My effort to turn 1 unit in 3 months means I can only do 4 a year. Now, what if it takes me all year to turn 1 apartment complex? 12 months. I got 10 units worth of time, and I got to scale so much faster than you. So if Alex and I started in the same day with the same amount of money, I will dominate Alex over the time it takes. And time, as we know, is the great equalizer. Whether you're rich or poor, sick or healthy, whatever age or race you're at, we all have only 24 hours of the day. We are busy. The only reason most people start with single family house is to get the experience. And the reason they can't go to an apartment complex is because they don't have the money. Alex might be in a situation where he has the money to do that. Now, if Alex had $500,000 and he was in San Francisco, he'd have to go after the small single family house. But I have, because their houses are $2 million. But I have friends in San Francisco and in LA. And you know what? They take their money and they invest in Louisiana and South Carolina and Arizona. So they're taking their big salary where they live and doing it somewhere else, right? Just like if you're in London with a business, like I'm Jack Busey and I'm in London and you're 2 hours north of London, but I'm making a good income. Let me go to a smaller town outside that maybe I can start flipping stuff in.
Got it. That makes sense. Makes sense. So what are the cities, for your experience, what are the cities? You mentioned Houston is one of the good opportunities. What are the cities with the low cost of homes, or in this case, apartments? Is it since this is the fourth biggest city, are you saying that only in the first, let's say, the 10 biggest cities of the US or wherever in the world, is that where we need to focus to invest?
So that's it's a loaded question, and two, it's a dangerous question. So the reason it's a dangerous question is because what I'm recording, when we're recording this right now, might be completely different than when someone listens to this. And so really you want to look at the tools because the market is always changing. So pretty much anywhere in the Midwest and most places in Texas still are okay. Austin is pretty much gone. Parts of Houston are gone, but Houston is so big that you can find decent cash flowing things in Houston. And then, Dallas, most of Dallas is gone. And so what you want to look for is where rent comes close to paying for the mortgage on the house. And the rule of thumb, it's called the rule of thumb, is the 1% rule. So if you're buying a house for $100,000, your rule of thumb is you want the loan, or you want it to be able to rent out for about $1,000 a month. If you buy a place for $200,000, you want it to be able to rent for $2,000 a month. Now, those aren't the real numbers, but if you get something close to that, you can look closer at the deal. It's really the 0.8%, the 80% rule. It's the 0.8% rule. So it's really, the real number is, if you're approaching it at 100,000, can it rent for $800 a month? And if you can get close to that number, then you're good. The reason why the 1% rule is, one, it makes it very easy to do math. And two, it puts you have enough meat on the bone for cushion. Now, if you go to Detroit, you can buy a fourplex for $20,000. But what is it going to rent for, right? And then what kind of headaches are there? So if you're going to buy in Fifth Ward in Houston, you're going to want to really make sure that you understand the economics of what's going on there. But what if that was the only place you could afford? Maybe you go to the Fifth Ward and you buy building after building and home after home after home after home. And you tell all your friends about it. And everything around Fifth Ward is, let's say, $200,000, and you're buying all these $100,000 properties. This is going back to your single family homes. All of a sudden, you control all of those. At some point, it's going to turn. Oh, but what if gangs go through there and they burn the house down? You have insurance, and it's already covered in your rent, right? Because you already are used to paying that. So those are some examples, but the short answer is time. A lot of people think too small. We find it in the lean community. People are thinking very small. Now, we're used to thinking very micro improvement wise, but we're thinking big picture, right? We're teaching our guys to think, well, put a piece of blue tape on here, update the label. But one day that guy is going to think about, or we hope, what if we move this machine from this building to that building over there? Because it makes sense that it should be over there. It's exercising the muscle over and over and over. So single family house builds your practice, but honestly, it's just easier to do an apartment complex.
And in your experience, what is it that you look for buying apartments? What are the characteristics that you're looking for?
I look for either some kind of personal distress or relationship distress. Usually it's a mom and pop. The property is run down, and I look at the market forces. So I'm looking towards the 1% rule. What can I buy it for? How much money is it making right now? How much money could it be making if it was in good shape? And then I make a comparison. So if you can buy a 5-plex or a 6-plex, you're officially in apartment complex territory. Maybe it costs you $700,000. This is all in price to buy. Well, a normal person can't go buy that. So you have less competition. A normal person can't get access to the loans, or can't get access to the down payment. You go do a 6-plex, 1 roof, 1 water heater, 6 units. Maybe you do a terrible job, and at the end of everything, let's say you're all in for $1 million, right? You can only get $750,000 out because you can only leave 25% in or whatever it is. But at the end of it, you have 750 grand out. You have 6 units that are paying you. You just renovated it, so you're not going to have a problem with a water heater or roof anytime soon because you just fixed all that stuff. Now you control that asset. It can go vacant, and you're going to be in good shape for a very long time. So why wouldn't you do that?
Right. And let's talk about loans.
Okay.
Where do you get the best type of loans? You go to bank, you go to, I mean, there's different ways, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So
What is the best thing to do?
So once you start, this is you get plugged in with a local real estate meetup. You're in Houston. If you're in any major city, then there's absolutely a local real estate meetup. And the local investors are going to know all that information for you. And you might have to sweet talk them or buy them a few beers because they'll have the local hookup. But usually from a loan perspective, like anyone asks me, hey, do you know where I can find money to buy this thing? I am taking that guy directly to my banker and I'm saying, you need to talk to this guy right now because they want that. Why? Why am I doing that?
I have no idea.
Why would it be beneficial if I help my banker make another loan?
Oh, because you can close a business.
Because now,
Sure.
yeah, so I'm developing the relationship there. Why would it be helpful if I'm taking an investor who maybe knows me very well, maybe doesn't know me at all, and I'm trying to find them with the person to get the money?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to close the business. You're going to have a need in someone that can help and make it happen.
Right. Yeah, you're constantly fostering that relationship. It's an abundance mindset. One day, 3 years from now, I'm gonna say, "Oh, I'm looking for an apartment complex, or I'm looking for a single family home off of this street," and that guy's gonna remember it. He's gonna say, "Oh, hey, my aunt is actually selling the house. So before it gets on the market, you need to go." I operate under this assumption in existence where the first thing I do is I try to provide value to as many people as I possibly can. To include this, we're having a conversation. We're just gonna get you any information. Now you dip your toe in the water, right? Now you're in the apartment complex. Hey, Hugh, what do you think about these? And we can find you lending and financing and all that stuff. Not that it benefits me, but it's going to benefit you. Now, Alex, if I make you $5 million in the next year because I'm just helping you out, are you going to like me more or less?
Oh, I'm going to love you.
So
you're already a good friend. You're going to be a super friend.
Right. Well, and maybe we go hang out. Maybe or maybe if I'm like, hey, Alex, I'm thinking about investing in Houston. Now you're gonna be like, oh man, I got the bumps and scrapes for Houston. Don't go here. Do this. Just like with the lean community, right? If there's a new lean person, the first thing I'm doing is like, oh my gosh, here's all the mistakes I made. Please don't do that. And here's the why. Same concept.
Yeah.
To shortcut them. Now, maybe they didn't have the struggles we did. They start where we are at now, and they develop a new lean concept, a new idea, and then we get to learn from them, right? And as a business owner, right, oil and gas and whatever, politics aside, people need it. people need to drive around. People need airplanes. Ships have to drive, cargo across the world. You got to have electricity, right? Electricity is, we got a natural gas meter here that, a power plant. Like, the entrepreneurs are solving a problem for someone. And if we can help them do it better, that's great. If I can help you with that apartment complex, yeah, you're rewarded with money. But what did you do? You went into a bad neighborhood that the government's afraid to go into. You took care of an asset, and now you're bringing it up. You bought raw materials and you stimulated the economy, and you're putting that property that's about to be torn down back into service. You've actually improved the community, even though people like to say, "Oh, the landlords, they're the bad people, greedy landlords coming in." And
That's what you did with a hotel, right? You bought a hotel that was going down,
yep,
and not only saved the salaries of, I don't know how many people you have in
it was
that
about
hotel,
14. Yeah,
14 people, 14 families, and then you're bringing the property up, and like you said, motivating the local economy.
right.
Uh,
This was during
and
COVID. We didn't want to get rid of people, and we said, you know what? We just trained everybody 2-second lean. We're very dug into 2-second lean. Let's help everybody, and we didn't get any assistance from the government. We didn't get any help, but we kept everybody working through the winter and the downturn. And the summer picked back up, and we were rewarded with it from thankful and grateful employees, right? And most of them were single mothers. So we kept 8 single mothers employed, trying to make bad things better, right? And so it's kind of the essence of all this. It's that abundance mindset.
so, what was the percentage of the rooms being, let's say, rented? You must have an average.
So there were
And where are
there
you
were
at?
40 rooms total. Right now we've got 32 back operational. When we bought it, there was about 12. And so that's a lot of issues. The 32 rooms really, it's 38 rooms operational, but we have some HVAC issues. And so we're actually getting those replaced today while this is being recorded. And once those HVACs are up, they're completely rented. We have had extreme weather, and Alex just saw the twice this morning, my power went out, and our hotel was able to house people who needed a place to stay because they didn't have power at their house or come shower or something. So that's an example. Abundance mindset.
It's another way you're helping the community, right? Having some assets available to help out.
Right. Okay. So
Great.
what was your big? Well, yeah. So what was your biggest takeaway from everything?
Well, I think that the fact now I understand a little better why the apartment complexes are a no-brainer versus homes. I mean, you're simplifying everything. Just I'm thinking of when you flip a home, a big expense, and this is a surprise for me, for sure, was the garden. In some of these homes, the gardens, it's not cheap to renovate a garden, if you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean. Just the amount of grass, the plants are terrible expensive. The mulch, sometimes you have to level dirt, and if you have some drainage problems and things like this, once you do that for, let's say, a complex, you're doing it for 10 units inside, right? You're not duplicating every time, every home, duplicating the garden over and over. The roof is very typical, in any 15 plus year old roof, you're going to start looking at that. So I can see the value of simplifying the renovation cost and work that needs to be done on that.
Yeah.
And the risk goes down. The risk of not renting it, if you have 10 units, it's not the same of being or 100 or zero versus 60% or 80%.
Right. The likelihood that all 10 units are vacant are very unlikely. So your risk.
And if those are, let's say, not rented, you can take the opportunity to renovate a little bit that one versus, you can't renovate all of them at the same time. So it gives you opportunity to kind of keep it
Right.
alive versus a home that's
Yeah.
on or
And we
off.
do it, and there's different methods to this, but when we buy a new property, as long as the tenants that are in there, doesn't matter, single family home, whatever, as long as they're not causing a problem, we leave them there forever, right? So if they're paying $400 a month and they're a sweet old lady and they're always on time with rent and they're not causing problems, they're not selling drugs, absolutely, we're going to keep them there. And as other tenants move out, that's when we go in and renovate. So you might be buying a property that breaks even on cash flow already because you get your loan when you buy it, right? And then you get a bigger loan when you get your money back at the end.
So here you're mentioning, I have two questions for you on that regard. So how do you manage your assets,
Okay.
right? Who takes care of them? The water heater went out. Hugo's not. Hugo's going to the East Coast to have some fun with a lean friend. He's not going to be able to change the
Right.
take care of.
Right.
And the second question is, how do you choose your tenants?
Right. So I have, so yeah, to Alex's point, I have 300 units right now. I don't manage those, right? I could, but I don't. And there's very good reasons why I choose not to. I have what's called a property manager, and every country usually has a version of a property manager. And I vet them through experience. I've fired 3 property managers, and the one I have now I love. 8 out of 10 property managers are terrible. And you choose some from experience, but there's a book called Long Distance Real Estate Investing. It's also in the BRRRR book. Same guy wrote them. There's a series of questions to ask. And what you usually want to do is I'll have 2 property managers. If you have 10 properties, you give 5 to one and 5 to the other. And then you have one as a backup. And if anything goes wrong, you transition them over to the next one while you're looking for another property manager. You ask them questions. Hey, it's Friday evening. Lady calls in. I don't have any hot water. What do you do? Now you're testing the property manager. If the property manager says, I'm going to call them immediately to get a plumber out there. Cool. The property manager just told you they're going to waste $250 of your time immediately, instead of saying, okay, hey, have you checked that the pilot light is out? Hey, first, if that doesn't work, then we'll send our maintenance guy. If the maintenance guy can't fix it, then we'll call the plumber. Okay. Then you ask them, well, how do you charge? Who pays for the maintenance guy? Right. A good property manager usually will say, if it's something that was with the property, then the landlord should have paid for it. The landlord pays for it. If the tenant caused the issue, the tenant pays for it. Good property managers know what they're doing. And to find a good one, you should go to your local, whoever's listening to this, your local market to find the real estate investors. Also, it starts out at 10%, right? Most in the United States right now. So if you're charging $1,000 a month, they're going to take $100 to manage your property. They deal with the evictions, they deal with the cleaning, they deal with the maintenance, they deal with the toilets in the middle of the night. For me, absolutely worth it. Now that I have 300 units, I've negotiated that down to 8% and then 7%. And I think I'm sitting around 6% right now. And that's just a factor of scale, right? When you have more units, it makes it easier for them as well. They also know every one of my properties has the same type of toilet. Every one of my properties has the same light bulbs. They have the same sinks, standardization, 3S, right? Now, when the maintenance guy goes over, he's seen 50 of the units like this before. And so it keeps the costs low. And then we set up a Kanban for that. Or, you train and develop your property management company, how to make more money doing that.
But just the fact to go to the apartment complex versus going to 20 different homes spread through the city is time and I guess money just to transportate, yourself to transportation costs or shipping of goods or to repair. Yeah, that's another big
And
advantage.
from a transportation waste standpoint, the 8 wastes, oh my gosh, let's just talk about the 8 wastes for a second. You have overproduction with transportation and you can't control the transportation. You'll never be able to move the homes closer. If you have an apartment complex, you have overproduction because you have 10 units and you can only manage 1 unit at a time, but at least the transportation waste is in one area. If it's a single level, that's better transportation waste than if it's a multi-story, because now you have to get dollies and stuff to go up and down. So I train all my contracting crews for free how to do 2-second lien. And I train them. Actually, there's a video coming out on this channel that's going to be in the contracting space, because the first thing people say is, oh, well, we're not in manufacturing, so lien doesn't apply to us. You and I know that's baloney. And yeah, you're right. Now you're consolidating everything down. Everybody has the same filter. Everybody has the same whatever.
Yeah. So you keep one of the same, standardization.
Now, Alex, all right, so in this hypothetical example, you're doing, small flips, and I'm challenging you to get into a 6-plex or an 8-plex. When you have $2 million to your name or $4 million to your name, actually, realistically, probably by the time you have $1 million to your name, I'm going to be saying, why aren't you going after 20 plexes? And when you have $2 million to your name, I'm going to say, why aren't you doing $150 unit apartment complexes? They're only 10 or 20 million. You're taking the same money that you have right now, your $500,000. And remember, at the end of our fake example, you got $750,000 out. That was tax-free. And you go do it again. And then you go do it again. And then you go do it again. Well, by the time you're done with four plexes or 4 10-plexes, now all of a sudden, you really know how that size of a property works. So you go into the next size, but you're using the same money over and over. You don't have to come up with new money, and you're not selling the property and you're not paying taxes on it. Now, there's a loan. That's scary. Who's paying the loan off for you?
The tenant.
The tenant's paying the loan off. And so they're paying the loan down. Your property, is it going up or down in value over time?
No, it's going up.
So it's going up in value. They're paying the loan down, which means your equity is going. They're also paying you every month. Then you get the tax write-off. So we're looking at 4 profit generations from one unit. Now, why not do it for 10 at once?
So everything is a process,
Yep.
right? We know this. And so what is your process for the tenants to choose the tenants?
It's a fantastic example. You and I shouldn't have this conversation, because if you have a good property manager in place, that's their problem. You as the owner should be making owner-based decisions for running of the asset, and you should have no communication with your tenant. This is my opinion, and there's 2 camps, right? I want to know everything and I want to pick them all. I'm going to advise you against that. Now, if that's all you did was real estate, maybe yes. But because you have a full-time job, you intend to continue to have that full-time job for the next 20 years. And all of that is going to be, you need someone else to do the managing for you. So your question should be, how do I have a good property manager? Now, often good ones will look for good credit scores. They're going to look for not 1, but 2 references. You want not the last apartment or place they lived, but 2 places before. Could be credit score, and then background checks. That being said, I set my criteria for what my property manager needs to follow. My property manager actually has higher standards than I do, because if they're the ones that are getting the call, right? They're the ones that are getting the call at 2 a.m. because they're drunk and they don't know how the toilet works. It's in their best interest, and a good property manager will make sure that they don't want to deal with it either, because they get paid the same $100 whether they're dealing with the problem tenant or a good tenant. So it comes down to picking a good property manager. Now, if you really want to self-manage, that'll be its own podcast, but you can't scale very quickly, and I'm
No, and if you're trying to focus on your work and then have that as an investment, you definitely need a good property manager.
Right. And that's the lens I'm viewing things from. If you're, I don't know, Daniel Lopez in the UK and you're running such camper vans, yes, you can manage everything yourself. As lean people, we tend to want to take that on. But if you are already used to managing people, why not manage a good property management company? Let them, their full-time professional status is to know the laws, to know how to do evictions, to know how to collect the rent and deposits, whatever they may be, to find and screen good tenants. And they also don't charge you if it's vacant. So that's in their best interest to have you pay have them fill your units for you. So you have aligned interest there. The more money they can make you, right? If they put someone in at $1,200, they get $120 a month instead of $100. They're incentivized to look out for you. They're also incentivized to keep the cost and expenses low. Now, bad property managers, they're going to be sending out, they make their money by billing maintenance. Oh, the light bulb is out. So they send the property manager over, $35, change the light bulb. Cool. Now the property manager got to charge you, the owner. So you need to make sure that you have a good property manager. Right. And I'm not going to say a lot of them. I said 8 out of 10 are bad, not because they're malicious. I'm going to say 8 out of 10. A polite way to put it is 8 out of 10 are sloppy and incompetent. And that's exactly what 2-second lien is for, right? You, as a 2-second lien operator, really knows your stuff, was able to look right through the crap, right? That's why I retired in 15 months, not because real estate's awesome, which it is, but because I was used to taking $7 million of raw materials, coordinating 350 workers to turn that into $12 million of product in a month and get it out the door. That's way harder than managing a property manager. And the lean skill set of training and asking the questions and all this stuff, anyone in the 2-second lien space is going to be right at home. They're going to pick it up immediately, and they're going to know if someone's pulling your leg. Why? Because you know if Bill in your woodworking department is making an excuse, because you know when they're bullshitting you, because you're already doing 2-second lien at a high level, right? So it's just the same with them. So you just keep cycling them through. And I've planned some obsolescence. I've had some, and then we planned it to where it's like, okay, property manager A are terrible. I'm going to play nice with them while I find property manager B and C. And then I'm going to really interview and vet them. And every time I vet them, I'm going to take something I learned. Not property manager A is bad. Property manager is A is bad. Why? The 5 whys. Because they don't do this, because this is what's going on, because I'm not making any money. Not because I'm not making money, but because these are the headaches and they're not making any money. So then you find B and C, you say, okay, tell me what happens for these situations. And, all right, let's do Taishiano. Edward Deming. Stop awarding business on price alone. I'm happy to pay a property manager $10 or 10% over one that who does a phenomenal job, and I never ever think about them ever, than someone who does 6% in their crap, and I'm always chasing them around. Right? It's the old way of thinking, and you're used to that. Lean. So if you're in the lean space, right now you might be intimidated because you don't know what you don't know. Once you have a little bit more education, you'll know what you don't know, and everything's easy.
Very good.
Yeah,
very good. So definitely, I got the concept of homes versus apartments.
Yeah.
And let them pay for it. The whoever's going to lease is really just investing for you, and let it work for you. That's the key. And the key is finding that 20% of good property managers.
Right.
But with a big mindset, it's easy to find.
Easy. You can look right through people. You're a good judge of character. And you're going to be working for your company for the next 20 years. During that time, if you're just an apartment complex here, an apartment complex there, an apartment complex here, you're not managing it day to day. You have a system and process that's handling it for you. You and I are system and process experts. If the system breaks, everything's a process. You can jump in, firefight, maybe you take a vacation day or something like that. You correct the process and you start from there, right? If you think back, maybe your 6 flip houses were before lean. Maybe they were before you had systems and processes. Maybe you thoughtlessly not thoughtlessly being bad, but you just didn't think about what went well, what went poorly, how do we do it better, right? Yeah, you didn't Hansei it. So, all right. So we're getting a little long in the tooth for this episode. I hope people watch it. I got a few questions for you before we leave. And we can touch base offline and I can give you all the resources. All the resources, get the BRRRR book, Long Distance Real Estate Investing. They're going to be linked in wherever this is. All right. You ready for some uncomfortable money questions?
Absolutely.
If you got in a car accident right now and you were in a coma, right? You're not dead. You can't even tell anybody your password, but you can't go to work either. How long of a runway do you have before you or your family are bankrupt, or can't, or is it infinity?
No, for sure that we would be in a bind. That's a big problem.
There's a book. There's a guy named A.J. Osborne. Exactly that happened to him. He woke up 6 months later, and he was richer and better off than when he went into the coma because he had real estate and he had set it up properly. And it's the beginning of his book. And actually it's this blue book back. It's self-storage in case. Okay. So that was one. 18-year-old you, Alex, you're talking to you at 18. What's one book or resource 18-year-old you wish you knew about business or whatever, life?
Maybe Big to Great, 2 Second Lean, The Road Less Stupid.
The Road Less Stupid. Okay. 3 resources.
Those 3 books are good.
Yeah. And what's one resource or advice you would want to give yourself that's not business related? Or maybe it's money related or relationship related?
Don't be afraid to change.
Don't be afraid to change.
Just try it. It's so uncomfortable sometimes to try something new, but believe me, it's all about change. If you're not changing, you're not growing.
Right.
Sometimes we don't want to change and then leave that comfort zone. So if I was 18 years old, I probably haven't done any big decision yet, maybe what to study, but who knows what you're going to be when you go into college? You don't know.
Yeah.
Just be open and always constantly change. Just learn and change. Be curiosity all the time to learn, and that takes you to another thing. And don't be afraid to change.
That's awesome. Where can people find out more about you if they want to get a hold of you?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm really not in social media, but maybe I can give you my WhatsApp.
Okay.
And you can underneath the comments.
Yeah, because you have a unique perspective for the lean space. Is how do you make it work as a middle manager? That's a hard question, and we're all very impressed with you that you're able to do that.
Thank you. It's just passion. That's all it is.
Guys, if you want to be on the podcast, then there's a link below. Go to hughcarnahan.com/podcast, and you can apply to be a guest. And comment down on whatever platform this is. If you can leave us a review, that really, really helps. And Alex, we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for sticking around to watch. Please help us by watching this next video.